the vision of the Center for the Study of Modernity and the Rural World was born out of the very contradictions that we saw in some of the discourses at the summer conferences and that we wanted to address. Both Valer and I were working on similar topics, but also people who had been involved in the conference had grown thinking and being taught that modernity was the opposite of rurality, that in order to achieve modernity you have to leave the rural behind. And the very idea that Valer had to organize the summer conferences in Telciu, because you don't want to be speaking about a place in a different location than the place that you were addressing, had to do with the vision for the center itself, which first was also important as a juridical instance from which to also be able to act as organizers and to access funds. But theoretically, it was important to make the point that we are not separating rurality from modernity, that we think rurality is an integral part of modernity, and that unless we bring these two dimensions together, we will be condemned, and all the events that we organize will be condemned to reproduce the same discourse that sees rural Romania or every rural space as kind of lagging behind in a linear modernity that we're all yearning for but never achieve. So we thought the first step into achieving what we see as a decolonial intervention in the debates about modernity, but a decolonial intervention that has to do with the specifics of Transylvania, with the specifics of the discourse or discourses in Romania, is one that starts from debunking the idea of modernity as opposed to rurality, but also one that speaks about a place from the place, assuming the location as also one that shapes identity, history, and political commitment. I've been coming to Telciu since the very first edition, after having started to co-organize the summer conferences together with Valer. We had met and started talking about the conference project that he had initiated here, and the summer school was an immediate effect of the first conference that seemed to promise a longer conversation, but we had just planned for 2 days, and so we thought, okay, how do we prolong this conversation? Nobody wants to have a 10 days conference, but a lot more people would benefit from a summer school that is linked to the discussions at the conference, especially students. And that is how that started kind of flowing out of the mere academic circle of conferences and seeping into students' interest and involving also a learning process, which is both a learning process for us and for those who attend the summer school. It is the first time that the conferences and the summer school have the same topic. That was a pragmatic decision, but it turned out to be a very good one because we really have a more intense discussion after a conference with concentrated interventions and then a longer summer school with lengthier, ampler time to debate some of the issues. What I particularly find interesting in this edition is that we had a kind of risky topic, risky by its range, because race, sovereignties, and Southeastern thought was both very narrow and with a play on words with Southeastern thought, Global South in Eastern Europe. We were addressing an audience that really had to be in on, it's not a secret, but it sounds like it's a secret. So if you know what this title is about, then you really belong here. We assumed this risk, and it turned out that people who submitted papers for the conference and who wanted to attend the summer school really were in on the topic, and that made for so intense debates and for almost no, I'm not saying everyone agreed, that's not the point, but everyone was talking about the topic. Nobody needed to justify their interest in the topic, their approach, or so I think we're going into a direction where refining and narrowing down the topics is actually helping us have more focused conversations, and that's a good thing. One of the things that means most to me in coming to Telciu every year is the fact that it normally would take at least 5 international trips to get to meet everyone that assembles here and who is like-minded. Because of course you meet interesting people all the time, but in terms of this narrow but important theoretical and political focus, in terms of working on a decolonial perspective from and about Romania with people who live here and people who no longer live here but come back regularly, to have the possibility of this event happening regularly and addressing concerns that come out of our conversations is incredibly rewarding, and I wouldn't miss it for the world. So I'm coming back next year.